Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and in this video, I want to talk about how to isolate and solve any problem that you face in your job or in your business. Now, this is going to be another one of those videos which is very much specific to the self-publishing school team, but I'm going to be releasing it elsewhere because I think it would also be valuable for other people, whether you work in another company or whether you face problems in your business that need to be solved. So first things first, so many of you who are on the team know Jordan, and Jordan and I have had a lot of conversations because Jordan, Omer, Hunter, a lot of times seemingly seem to be the people who are kind of the bottleneck that a lot of problems get passed to them to end up being solved. And Jordan kind of has this uncanny ability to identify the root issue of problems and to fix those. And we've often had kind of back and forth conversations. Is this a skill that can even be taught, or is this something just either you have it or you don't? Right? And we kind of went back and forth on that and came to the conclusion that yes, we think this is something that can be taught. And that's really the goal and the objective that I'm going to be covering in this video. Now, first things first, this is one of those skills that if you learn it, it makes you way more valuable for the team in any role that you're working in any business that you're working in, or in any business that you run in the future. And it's also a skill that everyone has the ability to learn. Now, a lot of times, kind of what we found is that kind of people come to a problem and they see it as a roadblock, and they see, oh, I don't have the skill sets to solve that, or I don't have the ability, or maybe just Jordan has all this knowledge and I'm not as talented, or things like that, and so they just don't even try, right? And that's what I'm going to get into in just a bit. But a lot of, like, an unknown secret, or I guess it's kind of a known secret, or at least it's going to be now, is that Jordan and I often just Google things, right? Jordan didn't come to self-publishing school with a lot of the knowledge that he has now. He got a lot of really great training. I remember David doing a lot of training. I've obviously done a lot of training. There's a lot of training and skill sets that he's learned, but a lot of that also is a result of the mentality that he shows up with, right? So it's this mentality that I'm about to teach. So first things first, when you're isolating and solving problems, there's kind of two parts, two key things that you need to have here. So number one is the mindset, and then number two is the skill set. So I'm going to go through the mindset first, and I'm going to kind of break down the skill set and the three questions that you need to ask as you're going through the process. But first, the mindset. So the mindset is a bias towards solving problems instead of deferring them to others, okay? Or instead of defaulting towards kind of your first instinct is, let me post this in Slack, or let me create an Asana task, or let me push this to someone else. A lot of times you can solve or you can save a lot of work by just taking 5 to 10 minutes of due diligence on the very front end. And what I found, or what my hypothesis is that a lot of people, they just don't believe that they're capable or competent in solving this problem. And so they just defer it to other people. Sometimes it could be out of laziness. I think more often it's just thinking, man, I don't know what to do here, right? So what I want to walk you through is really a process, 3 steps that anybody can follow to solve pretty much any issue that you might encounter here. So there's 3 questions. I'm going to run through them, and then I'm going to give some very specific self-publishing school examples that should relate to a wide variety of roles and problems that all you guys have encountered in your time here. So question number 1. Is there an actual issue here, or is this a one-off problem? So really what I'm trying to determine is, can this be duplicated? Or is this just one person and it's a random isolated issue? Because a lot of times if you just spend the extra few minutes to figure that piece out, you can save yourself from any further investigation, from passing it to someone else or anything, because you'll realize that there actually isn't a problem here at all. And you can definitively know that versus just guessing and hoping that there's not a problem. So that's question number 1. Number 2, what's the root issue or the root cause of this, if there is an actual issue here? And then doubling down and re-asking the question of, is this an actual root issue? So just when you think you found the root issue, what I like to do is ask, could it be something else? Am I sure that I'm sure? And before I go off on trying to solve this thing, I want to say, all right, let me just make sure that this is definitely it. And then that leads me to number 3, question number 3, which is, how can I fix it? Or really, it's kind of a sub-question to that is this worth fixing? Because sometimes you'll find that the effort it takes to fix the thing is not worth the trade-offs. And this is actually an acceptable problem. This happens all the time. in marketing and stuff that Jordan and I are putting together, where we know about certain issues and we say, hey, we're fine to keep that as an issue because we know what it would take to solve it, and there's trade-offs, unacceptable trade-offs. So there might be a short-term issue that's going to cause us extra work, stuff like that. But we're fine to just let it ride because it's not worth the trade-offs, okay? So those are the 3 questions. Now let me give you some very specific examples, and maybe one of these will hit home in your role, and I'm going to show you kind of how you can use these 3 questions. So let's see. Example number 1 is anything that comes into Zendesk that's a student issue. So maybe it's, hey, this webinar link doesn't work. A lot of things around links not working. Maybe it's that I can't find a time on the schedule. It's isolated questions or problems. This PDF isn't opening for me in the membership portal, things like that, right? So question number 1, is there an actual issue here, or is this a one-off problem? So can I duplicate this? So my first goal is to see, are there 2 or 3 other instances of this issue? So maybe there's 2 or 3 other support tickets, and I can kind of recall that, hey, I've seen this a few times over the last week or 2. Or can I replicate it myself? So oftentimes when people pass this sort of stuff to me or Jordan, literally the first thing we'll do is open it incognito and test it ourselves. And oftentimes just doing that, we'll figure something out, and we'll kind of get a hunch on, is this a real issue? So key in on the incognito window, the controllables, like how can I emulate this to the best of my ability like that person would see it, right? So then if I determine that, okay, yeah, that's weird, this webinar isn't working, so now I'm going to say, what's the root issue or the root cause? I'm going to say, okay, well, we've got 5 different webinars depending on the traffic source or things like that. Let's figure out, is this the YouTube webinar? Is this the AdWords webinar? Is this the blog webinar? What page is it? Let me see if I can isolate it down to a single webinar, to a single page. I might even test it in multiple browsers, so Safari, Chrome, things like that. And I'm trying to isolate it, and then if it is a true issue, I'm going to try to go fix it. Right? So maybe there's a wrong link in an email campaign, and I can go into the email campaign, and by having 3 examples, I see that they're all in this same email campaign, and then I say, oh, there must be a link right in this email, and then I find it, turns out there's a link to an old webinar, which is in the old version of Webinar Jam that doesn't exist anymore, right? We've gotten all the way down to the root issue, and then we've solved it without having to have any prior knowledge or context to the situation. Okay, so let's do another example. So earlier this week, we ran into an issue with sales message. So there was this issue where prospects were getting sent multiple text messages from our reps. So this issue was brought to our attention. And first things first, we're going to go to the question, is there an actual issue here, or is this a one-off problem? So we said, all right, is this just one person, or is this affecting other people? We found that there's a small subset of people that this was affecting. So we said, okay, there is some sort of issue here. Let's look further into what's going on. So we found out that the issue is that there are some people who are in multiple funnels or in multiple buckets. So they're getting multiple texts from different reps. So then we said, all right, this is a small subset of people. Here's what the problem is happening. This is what the root issue is. How can we fix it, or is it worth fixing? Well, actually here we determined that if we're going to fix this, we're actually going to need to shut off some text in some of the sequences to avoid the possible duplication. Well, obviously texting is one of our biggest response mechanisms. So we said, okay, this is a very small subset of people that we're not willing to accept the trade-offs. So we're actually going to keep this as is. We recognize that, a small handful of people will be affected. That's a trade-off that we're willing to accept. We'd rather have a couple people be affected and confused or maybe even upset than sacrifice the potential extra customers due to us, actually following up with them and going through the process. So we decided at that point, this isn't a big enough issue to solve. So again, by asking those couple of questions, you actually end up saving yourself kind of a ton of the work in the long term. So let me walk through a couple final examples here. So earlier this week, Dylan was having an issue with Video Speed Controller playing videos as he was going through the playbook. So it wasn't working, which is obviously very frustrating because Video Speed Control is awesome. And if you have to watch videos on normal speed or download them or whatever, maybe it's just going to take a lot longer. So the first question I asked, is this an actual issue or is this a one-off problem? So when's the last time you restarted your computer? Have you Have you refresh your cookies, reset your cookies? Like those are oftentimes those two things will solve almost any problem that you're having with your computer or playback or anything like that. And so we got through that, and then it's like, okay, where are the videos at? Are they hosted on Vimeo, YouTube, Google Drive, somewhere else? Is it multiple? Because then that's going to tell me this is not a specific to, I'm trying to isolate it, right? This isn't specific to a tool. This is on all videos. So there's a bigger issue. So we found out it was only Google Drive videos. So then we go into, okay, do you have the right permissions? Okay, you do, so that's not it. It must be a playback issue. I tried to play the videos on my side, so see if we can replicate it. So we're just running into a bunch of dead ends. We ended up getting him logged out of Chrome, which is the equivalent of resetting your cookies. And it turns out that then all of a sudden it was working again. So there's some sort of extension or something like that was interfering with his ability to play videos via Google Drive. And we were able to kind of isolate that by going through the process. How do we fix this? Well, now it's fixed because we did that little reboot here, right? Final examples. So Infusionsoft and $0 on your calendar. I'm going to kind of go two birds, one stone. So a lot of times if you're an SDR, customer success, anything like that, and you see an issue in Infusionsoft, so there's some duplication. A customer's like, hey, I've already applied. Why am I getting these emails? I have already bought. Why am I getting these emails? So then I want to say, okay, is there an actual issue? So what I'm going to first check is, do they have do they have a phone number and there's multiple contacts? Do they have multiple emails? I'm going to poke around in their email history that they got from us. Did they just randomly start getting emails recently? And it was right at the bottom of the funnel. Well, then chances are they were already on our list with a junk email, and so they added a new email. So I'm going to try to isolate that. And if I can't do that, then okay, maybe there is an actual root issue, or I'm going to try to find a couple other examples of the problem. If I can find a couple other examples, then I'm going to say, oh, this is a campaign issue, and all these people have one thing in common: they're in this campaign. Right? So now I know I need to fix that campaign. And so either I can run it up the flagpole to someone who can fix the campaign, and I'm kind of serving them up, hey, I found something for you, a bridge to fix. You didn't even have to find it. I found it for you. So now you're being a helpful teammate that's kind of bringing things that need to be solved that will help them perform better. Or I can fix it myself. Right? And then the last issue is the $0 on the calendar, right? So anytime this happens, I want to say, is it just me? Am I the only rep that this is happening to, or other people have it? Is there multiple instances on my calendar, or is there just one instance? Right? Then I'm going to try to test it, and I'm going to submit an application myself, see if it gets canceled. So then I'll know whether or not this is an isolated issue to this individual. Did this individual select $0 plus something else? Right? I'm going to try to isolate it and figure out, okay, where's the true problem here? Is there an actual issue? Which, like I said earlier, just doing that step saves you from having to solve 60% of problems, because most of them, they're not actually problems once you get into it. So I'm going to do that and then isolate it, and then if there is an issue, I'm going to solve it. So I know that this can be kind of boring and monotonous and all that stuff, but this is just a really, really important skill where as we learn it as a team, we're all going to get better. Whenever you have a couple key people that are bottlenecks for problem solving, it really just slows down our ability to innovate, our ability to add more value to our customers, our ability to try new things, to test things, to fail fast, fail forward, fail often, because we know people can fix things, our ability to get new customers, all those things. So it is just such an important skill that I want everyone on the team to learn, because as we learn it, we're going to be able to help each other out. We're going to be able to be better teammates and really work together towards this common goal of helping a whole lot more people write and publish their books. So something that I really want to challenge you over the course of the next week is anytime that you run into a problem, go through this process, right? So is there an actual issue here? Can I duplicate this elsewhere? What is the root issue? How can I fix it? Is it worth fixing? And then kind of running through that and going through this process yourself. And then if you need help, and if you went like 90% of the way there and you still can't figure it out, that's totally cool. Phone a friend and get some help on the team. But I really do think just taking those first 5 to 10 minutes and giving a little bit of effort and having that mindset, like I said, the mindset thing, then the skill set thing, is going to help us to be able to solve most of our own problems. And then there's this really empowering feeling where I know I don't have to wait on somebody, right? A lot of times when you run into a problem that you can't solve, it's like, oh crap, I got to send this to someone, assign them a Asana task, drop it in Slack. Now all of a sudden I'm waiting for hours, and this is really holding me up from finishing this task or this project that I wanted to finish, right? So now you'll be able to finish your stuff faster. You have the peace of mind there. And it's pretty empowering to know, wow, I can actually fix this. I got more skills than I thought. And I think you'll find this to be true. And I know Jordan's experienced in the past when he's learned new things. And I've seen many people on the team, like Michael right now, creating all these zaps and automations and all this stuff. That just happened because one time he decided to say, hey, I'm going to try this. Right? And then you build that skill, you build that muscle, you build that confidence, and then you have that confidence to go out and try and do new things and make improvements. So there you have it. I'm going to challenge you to use this skill set in the next week. Report back your results. Comment on this video. Let me know what you think and let me know how it goes. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.